Why are you interested in telling your story?
Because my hope would be that other people, and primarily women, would learn to pick up on some of the signs of abuse that get worse with time, not better, and be able to extract themselves earlier before more damage is done to themselves and to their families, their children.
You stayed too long?
I stayed way too long. Well, as I was growing up as a kid, I was molested throughout my childhood, and that's a pretty good setup for a lot of women to find themselves in an abusive relationship. I've heard it said that until you resolve some of the abuse from your past, you keep repeating those patterns. At some point after my first marriage had ended, I was sad. I loved him a lot. Angry, left the church, figured I'd do whatever I wanted. Met somebody that was very charming, very kind, about 20 years older than myself, and not from this country. And we began a relationship that that I thought was great in the beginning. We had dated only a couple of months before it was the first time that I ended up being hospitalized because of him.
And they must have asked you what happened.
They did. I drove myself to the hospital the night I needed to be stitched together because I was too embarrassed to even ask a friend for a ride. And I had no business driving, but I did. And then once I got there, I knew enough to get there. Something clicked in my head, I can't go in. I was too ashamed. I was ashamed to allow myself to be physically hurt. So I sat in the parking lot in the middle of the night, and I don't know how much time had passed, but thankfully at some point a hospital worker came by, saw me in the car and asked, "Do you need help?" And I just nodded, and then I have a little blank out. I'm not sure how I got from car into emergency room, but as they were examining me, of course they were asking, "Who did this to you?" I mean, it was obviously not an accident or a self-inflicted, and I'm not going to go into the detail of what happened, but I was literally incapable of speaking. And I remember that I just closed my mouth and I turned my head away, and I just wanted them to not talk to me, fix me so I could get home. And that's it. One of the nurses or interns, I suppose, that was checking me with the doctor, and she went, "Oh my God," and turned around and got sick. And that shut me down even more, with shame and embarrassment. That was shame and embarrassment. Not staying in the relationship for some reason. So by the time I got home, it was late morning, and the person that I'd gotten to stay with the kids got them off and ready to school. And I called up into work and just told them that I wasn't feeling well and had a touch of the flu, and told my kids the same thing. Mom just doesn't feel real well, and I needed to stay home for a few days to heal. So I just told them I was sick. And I ended up staying with him almost 4 years. It seems that it happened so slowly. I was special, I was prized, I was cherished. And then there's a little problem, there's name calling, or there's, he comes over drunk and hurts me, and it just seems that, well, that can be brushed away and brushed under the carpet because there was so much good. And it became worse. The bad things were almost all that there was, and very, very, very little good. But I also learned. This particular person was, he was a sociopath. And part of the fun in a relationship for him was control. He did not like it when I was with any of my friends or even talking with my mom on the phone. He began to, at first it was, boy, I like it when you wear something, this or that. And as time went on, it was a requirement to dress a certain way. I worked with the Denver Post in advertising for years, and I was a single mom of 3 little kids, and I had come home from work on more than one occasion. This happened that you want to hear the kids' stories and get them dinner and cleaned up and off to bed. Didn't have time to just change from work. He would walk in, and I was still business dress, and be angry as soon as he walked in and saw me, accusing me of wanting to, you're going to go out and be fucking with somebody else. And just this mean, which wasn't the truth, but mean look come over him. And it didn't matter if I said, just didn't have time to change. It didn't matter. Whatever was in his head was what was right. He had so much power and control over me. Some would say I gave it to him, but I didn't know how to. I wasn't good at saying no. But it was my job to keep everybody happy. If I could keep my kids happy, if I could keep him happy, if I could keep work happy, I was good. I was doing okay. I was a good and worthy person. So the part that was really sick was keeping the sick person happy. And that meant came to me and allowing him to become very abusive with me. Like I said, I ended up in the hospital with my insides being stitched back together when we had only been seeing each other 3 months. Why didn't I turn around and walk away? Well, he was sorry, he said. And I guess accidents happen and things can get out of control in any relationship, and that's how I rationalized staying. He did was start to leave marks on me so that if I were to be with anybody else, they would know that I belonged to somebody already.
Marks.
Nothing that you could see when I was dressed, but there were bruises, burns, and after he would do something like that to me, he would laugh and have a great big smile of satisfaction. It's like, now anybody knows, you know, that you belong to somebody else. If he was in a mood to fight, if he was in an angry mood, he would want to take that out on me. And I knew it would be bad because after time he started cutting the telephone line back before cell phones. And so if there was a problem, I couldn't call for help. I did break off with a relationship with him a number of times, but his I'm sorry's and the promises of things to be better and different and good, I allowed myself to be pulled back into the relationship.
You know, as time goes on, it seems more and more obvious you should call the cops and you should get out of the relationship, and it makes me want to be prone to say, why didn't you? And I
was scared.
Why is it that you don't call the cops?
Because I was frightened of him, because I had heard stories and even shows on TV when a woman that is being abused or being hurt calls the police. They may come and intervene. They may even take them off for an overnight. This particular person was so angry, and I've known him to be so dangerous, that I believe that he would come back with a vengeance. They're not going to say, oh my gosh, you've got some bruises here, we're going to put him away for 5 years. That doesn't happen. So my fear of it being even worse, then he would up the ante.
Like what?
In different situations, like what I was telling you about.
What were your fears? What were your greatest fears?
He would threaten to kill the dog. He would ask in a menacing way, you know, how are your children doing? I know what that meant. You might sit there and say, how are your children doing? Wow, that sounds really scary. But if you know him to be a man that bruises, burns, hospitalizes, threats, cuts your phone line, you know that it means the woman knows that that's serious. It wasn't even just doing what he wanted. I would try and think on my own, what can I do to make him happy? Because he got angrier and angrier.